Imagine living in the US for 20 years, building a life, raising children, only to be suddenly deported to a country you barely remember. Or imagine waking up to find your father or mother detained overnight. No warning, no hearing, just gone. For many detained migrants, the nightmare is real, and it doesn't end with arrest. There's growing concern that Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, a site once notorious for holding suspected terrorists, could now serve as a detention facility for Caribbean migrants. This is the harsh reality facing thousands of Caribbean nationals today. Donald Trump's mass deportation plan is set to remove over 2 million undocumented migrants by the end of 2025, and his raids are tearing apart families across the US, leaving lives in limbo. But what does this mean for the Caribbean? The consequences are devastating. The impact of these deportations isn't just felt at the family level, they're also shaking the economies of Caribbean nations. In this video, let's uncover the real cost of this immigration crackdown, because this crisis is far from over. Let's begin with breaking down Trump's new immigration crackdown. Since returning to the Oval Office, President Donald Trump has declared illegal immigration a national crisis, rapidly expanding the scope of expedited removals and limiting due process for undocumented immigrants. According to the recent Department of Homeland Security (DHS) data, over 8,200 people have been arrested in the renewed push, with more than 6,500 removal requests filed. These numbers don't meet the administration's ultimate goal, the deportation of over 2 million undocumented migrants by the end of 2025. At the heart of this plan are dramatic policy shifts, including expedited removals for many individuals who have been in the United States for less than 2 years. That means countless Caribbean nationals may be sent back without even setting foot in a courtroom. But that isn't all. There's the controversy related to the Guantanamo Bay Concerns. Government officials have indicated that Guantanamo Bay may be used as a temporary holding facility, designating up to 30,000 beds for migrants deemed high risk. Immigration advocates and civil rights organizations argue that these offshore detentions represent a legal gray area, a place where regular immigration protocols do not apply as transparently. The secrecy surrounding Guantanamo operations has historically sparked human rights controversies, and critics warn that it could potentially shield the US government from oversight in deportation procedures. While some federal judges have already raised red flags, blocking, for instance, the transfer of Venezuelan migrants to Guantanamo, there remains a deep sense of unease, especially among Caribbean leaders, about whether these detainees will get a fair hearing. With that said, it's very evident that Caribbean governments are on edge. With this ambitious deportation agenda unfolding in the US, Caribbean nations are scrambling to prepare for a potential influx of deportees, many of whom left their home islands decades ago. For example, the Bahamas, which historically processes around 4,300 deportations each year, has already refused to serve as a third-party deportation site for migrants whose countries refuse them. Prime Minister Philip Davis insists that his country will not be a dumping ground, expressing fears that already overstretched social services will become overwhelmed. Jamaica, on the other hand, finds itself at the center of swirling rumors that 5,000 Jamaicans are on the deportation list. Jamaican Foreign Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith dismisses these figures as categorically false, but concedes that the deportation rate will likely surge given the Trump administration's hardline stance. Trump's plans have also caused diplomatic tensions and preparedness. Prime Minister Philip Pierre created a dedicated task force in St. Lucia to evaluate how increased deportations might affect the local economy. If US-Caribbean relations sour further, policymakers worry about trade tariffs, dwindling tourism, and currency volatility.
This shows basically how what happens out of St. Lucia, away from St. Lucia, has an impact on St. Lucia. We are a very small economy, a small society, and the imposition of tariffs, what we are very concerned about is the impact they have on inflation, on the cost of goods and services in St. Lucia, particularly food. But as you know, we import many of our food and other goods from the US. So this is why we are creating that special task force to look at the implications. And I hope that all the people involved in the importation of goods or work with that task force to see what we can do to mitigate against the effects of the tariffs.
In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves has publicly called for more detailed and transparent information sharing regarding returning deportees, emphasizing the need to assess each individual's background, especially if they have criminal records. This request comes on the heels of a February 2025 report by the Caribbean Policy Research Institute, CAPRI, showing that 42% of deported Caribbean migrants had prior criminal convictions, posing an added challenge to small islands that already face high crime rates and limited social services. And then there's the Remittance Crisis. Apart from the immediate humanitarian and social concerns, there's also a significant economic worry. The crisis in question concerns remittances, a critical pillar of many Caribbean economies. According to the Inter-American Development Bank, Caribbean nations received $18.4 billion in remittances in 2024, with Jamaica and Haiti especially reliant on these funds. A mass deportation wave could slash these funds overnight, undermining countless families' ability to pay for food, housing, healthcare, and education. Deported individuals typically lose their US-based jobs if they have them to begin with, and find it much harder to earn a stable income once they return to countries with minimal employment opportunities. This is particularly true in nations like Haiti, where the unemployment rate exceeds 14% and persistent political instability exists. By the way, if you're finding this video informative, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. It helps us bring more content like this. Thank you. Now, this brings us to the legal hurdles and human rights. Trump's immigration czar, Tom Homan, has signaled intentions for what he describes as the largest deportation operation in U.S. history, even referencing the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 as a basis for sweeping removals.
We're going to deport criminals every single day. ICE is out there right now. I just looked at the numbers. There are about 40,000 arrested by ICE in the interior since President took office, the vast majority of them being public safety threats and national security threats. They're not going to stop us. The district court judge isn't going to stop us from making this country safe again. We're going to keep moving forward. The media's been all over me, well, you know, are you happy with the numbers? I'm happy. I'm not satisfied. We're not going to rest. I'm not going to sleep well at night until every public safety threat, illegal aliens eradicated from this country. That's when we'll relax, and that's when we'll take some action. So he's taking his executive privilege and invoking that Alien Enemies Act, which is the right thing. There's been numerous investigations, deep investigations. We know that Trend Iowa come to this country to unsettle this country. They're connected to the Maduro regime, to the military and law enforcement. We know that. So they came to this country to commit violent crimes, to spread fentanyl, to kill thousands of Americans, and create havoc and unsettle this nation.
Civil rights advocates from groups like the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, warned that ramped-up expedited removals and reduced legal avenues for appeals risk violating U.S. constitutional principles and international human rights standards. The U.S. immigration court backlog stands at over 2 million pending cases, and a system already stretched to its limits may accelerate deportations at the expense of due process. Meanwhile, organizations like the Center for Michigan Studies report that 55% of deported Caribbean migrants in 2024 had lived in the U.S. for more than a decade. These statistics raise ethical questions about uprooting individuals who have established deep family and community ties within the United States. That brings us to the family separation factor. In many cases, deported parents must decide whether to uproot their American citizen children to a country the children barely know, or leave them behind with relatives in the United States. Such traumatic choices can cause lasting emotional and psychological damage. For children who do follow their deported parents, adapting to a new environment, sometimes with limited facilities, language barriers, or subpar schooling, presents yet another hurdle. These profoundly personal struggles transform immigration policy from a political talking point into a profound humanitarian crisis. Caribbean leaders, social workers, and activists across the islands call for more comprehensive protections and alternative resolutions to avoid splitting families. And then there are the Local reintegration challenges. For Caribbean governments suddenly receiving these individuals, reintegration presents a formidable challenge. Many returnees have spent their entire adult lives in the United States, mainly speaking English or local Caribbean dialects, but never fully reacquainting themselves with the homeland's cultural and economic environment. Some have criminal records, which can limit job prospects, while others possess skill sets more tailored to the U.S. market. In places like Jamaica, St. Lucia, and the Bahamas, where job creation often hinges on a narrow tourism sector, assimilating a large new population of job seekers in a short time may prove nearly impossible. Non-profit organizations and community groups are rallying to provide vocational training, mental health counseling, and transitional housing for deportees. Still, they often lack the funding and scale to handle the numbers that may soon arrive. This showcases the importance of Caribbean unity and collaboration. Against this backdrop, Caribbean nations are exploring collaborative solutions. Through regional alliances like the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, leaders hope to share resources, pool expertise, and develop region-wide strategies for reintegration. Some officials have suggested the formation of a dedicated Caribbean reintegration fund that the United States could partially support. They argue that Washington should take some financial responsibility for abrupt policy shifts that have displaced thousands of Caribbean nationals. Diplomats from the region are also urging U.S. lawmakers to reconsider certain aspects of expedited removals. They are advocating for more thorough legal screenings and improved pathways to legal status for those with family ties or long-standing residency. So, what's the future outlook on possible consequences? While the Trump administration defends these policies as necessary for national security and the rule of law, the ripple effects could be both immediate and long-term for the Caribbean. Economically, mass deportations threaten to choke off vital remittance streams, exacerbate unemployment, and drive up social welfare costs in small island economies that are already heavily indebted. Socially, a surge in deportees, some of whom have minimal ties to local culture, could fuel tensions and strain public services like healthcare and education. In the longer view, the psychological scars on separated families and uprooted communities may linger for years, undercutting the region's social fabric and potentially leading to higher crime rates if job opportunities remain scarce. The Caribbean has faced challenges before, and this is no different. While mass deportations threaten families and economies, resilience runs deep in our communities. By standing together, demanding fair treatment, and pushing for regional solutions, we can turn this crisis into a call for unity and change. The future isn't written yet. Let's ensure it's one of strength and opportunity. Do you know someone affected by these policies? Share their story in the comments below. We need to amplify these voices. What do you think about Trump's mass deportation plans? How will these policies impact Caribbean families and economies? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Check out this video on how Trump's Panama Canal threat threatens the Caribbean's economic future. If this issue matters to you, don't just watch, take action. Share this video to spread awareness, and comment below if you or someone you know has been affected by these policies. Let's make our voices heard together. Make sure to subscribe and stay informed. Don't forget to like and share. Also, hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. This is Caribbean Focus. See you in the next video.